Hey, so I was just I had this to lead into my story, right? I had this commission to paint Bob Marley, right? So I was I was I was at this. I'll just say this woman's place. Uh, no, not nothing nefarious, nothing sexual, particularly um, going on there in the slightest. But we were painting, and so I told her how I had a commission for Bob Marley, and I didn't get a chance to really look at it. It looks like crazy, like this crazy looking Bob Marley, right? But um, nonetheless, so I'm actually painting, fixing it. And But I was listening to "No Woman, No Cry," right? And originally, I thought it was a ballad towards a woman. But then, what I like to do with a lot of things is I like to reimagine or reframe or even authentically reframe what it is I'm hearing. And I heard "No Woman, No Cry" because I'm not with a woman at all, currently, and I'm not crying about it, right? But it sounded almost like a song for men. No woman, no cry. Don't worry about it, right? Anyway, that being said, while I'm setting up to paint, I thought I'd try to make this video quick and succinct and not long and drawn out. But the next pre story is that in the mid '90s, I was having a discussion with a guy. So this is really pre-internet. I mean, definitely pre-social media. Um, uh, and I was talking about how women, how he was talking about he has a mom and a sister, and his dad had left his family, right? And he was talking about rape and stuff. Uh, and turns out he has a pretty nefarious sexual history, incestual history with his sister. But needless to say, he was arguing the basic argument that women don't rape, right? And I said that they do. And before the internet, there wasn't a lot of newspaper clippings or a lot of evidence of women raping, right? And or molestation, basically, is what I'm getting at. But essentially, um, uh, as far as women raping, statutory rape, women and statutory rape, the majority of women rape is probably statutory rape. Um, anyway, and he said, well, look, if it is happening, it's statistically insignificant, and it doesn't need to be the case, right? And so I was listening to one of the Honey Badgers months and months ago, and really really liked, I forget her name, the Canadian one with the short hair, and it's not important to learn, but it was this, she was talking about she does a lot of pushback against women, and I really admired that. But anyway, so back in my story, back in the '90s, he was saying it was a statistical, very marginalized statistical fact if it was occurring at all, and that it shouldn't even be considered, right? Because we were talking about women's shelters versus men's shelters, right? And so, yeah, Karen Strong, I think is her name. And anyway, and so we were talking about how many battered men or men that can't fight back or the law doesn't favor them get displaced into homeless situations because they really wouldn't have a place to go, because the law at that time definitely was siding more for women getting custody and against men, right? Anyway, all I knew is that when the net came out and stories started happening, like a shitload of stories, just shitloads of them coming through the pipelines about this teacher is sleeping with this kid, and this teacher's sleeping with this kid, and this 34-year-old friend of somebody else is sleeping with this kid, having sex with this kid, right? There was that case where that, I think she was 34-year-old teacher, had sex and got pregnant with the 12-year-old kid. She was white, he was black. It's indifferent, but she ended up going to prison, having his baby, being exonerated. They ended up, I guess, getting married after the fact, and they somehow, like, sugarcoated this, right? And then there's this whole notion about the instinct of men and what it is to be a man, and this idea that a man or even a boy should be, like, you can't rape the willing and the boner being in an erect mode. You can't rape this. You can't rape the willing, and the boy should be proud to have sex with an adult, right? So anyway, I was really, really happy to see this widespread disclosure of all these women that were being accused of statutory rape, because I was like, look, this whole Me Too movement, I don't mind it. I think most everyone has some sort of, not particularly with sex, but just skeletons in the closet or shit they'd rather not go over again or something like that. But at the same time, this whole notion of women as victim, right, is very interesting, right? And I'm not trying to diminish it. I'm trying to add an intersection. I'm trying to intersect their story with the abuse that boys suffer at the hands of women and girls, right? So before I tell you exactly how this happened, I'll mention. Well, I guess I'll just jump into it, right? No more prefacing the story, because I'm laying out the paints here to fix my Bob Marley. So anyway, I was 6, and then there's a couple instances, right? I was 6. My parents bowled on Saturday nights, right? They always bowled since I could remember, before I could remember, on Saturdays, and so they always had babysitters, right? Well, at this particular time, they got a 14-year-old girl, right, to babysit. Really commonplace, no big deal. But this girl had been entering into puberty pretty quickly. And I don't know and I'm not here to justify how she was raised or whatnot. But the thing is there were 3 boys, right, in my family. We were all being babysat. And we were all laying in the living room, right? And then she came in and asked me to come to the bathroom, right? And so we got into the bathroom, and she had me lay down on the floor. Mind you, I was 6. I don't even think I had an erection at that time. And I'm not speaking of anyone else's physiology, right? I'm just saying I had not had an erection at that time, as far as I know. And the idea of sex didn't make any sense, and even the idea of women's bodies wasn't particularly, like, I don't know. I thought women were like charming creatures. Like, I really liked, I had Miss Doll, and she was a 6th grade teacher. It's really interesting. I also broke my spine shortly after this event. When I was in the 1st grade, that was my first spinal break. But anyway, so this 14-year-old brings me to the bathroom, has me lay down, and strips into her underwear, basically, and gets on top of me and starts grinding on me, and then putting my hands on her bra, on her tits, on her bra. And she kept asking if I wanted her to take off the bra. And I don't recall giving an answer, but she kept the bra on. But just found this process so fun for her to do while my parents were out bowling. And so this happened. This just happened a couple of times, right? But I do remember the next time, right? And I didn't know what to make of it, and I just went out in the living room and sat down again after it was done, and kept watching TV. But I realized it, how this probably started to shape my notion of sexuality relative to women and girls growing up, right? Um, anyway, but the next time she came by, she had a friend, a slightly older friend, I think, or maybe the same age, teenage girls. And so her teenage friend came along to babysit, and they brought me into the bathroom again, and kind of stripped me down into my underwear, and then she got on top of me, and basically repeated it. She didn't get naked. It was just a dry hump, right? But talk about the difference between section, the blurry line that's being pressed between, well, like sexual assault and rape, right? And then the idea of sexual harassment and sexual assault, and then the idea of catcalling someone and sexual harassment, right? It's all being equated and lined up as if it's the same thing, right? So I can't really say, I was raped, right? But part of the video isn't just my telling this story, right? Anyway, this is just the first girl. But anyway, so her friend sat in the tub in the bathroom and just kind of peeked over and watched her get on and mount me and have me grab her boobs and ask me questions. And they were kind of chuckling and laughing and thinking this was neat. Right. And that lasted a little while. And I don't remember anything other than I felt really weird, like I'm sore in the hip. And I went out, and it was nothing. Right. It didn't even really dawn on me until much later that this had happened. Right. Like that this shaped my, like, keep in mind, I didn't have any sisters, but this event happening those two times shaped my notion of how girls were, because as I entered into high school, remembering that girl was 14 when she was doing that, it had painted a picture of how sexualized girls were, right? Even in junior high school, right? When I was in 7th grade, there was this girl that was in 8th grade, and I was so shy and everything, but everyone, they called it going. You want to go together. You want to go together, right? Meaning that you're a couple or you're trying to couple up or something. So I said yes, and that was really cute because I thought, oh man, now I got this girlfriend, right? Well, I never kissed her, right? And then she broke up with me within a week and started making out with a 9th grader against the lockers. And it made me feel bad. It made me feel real dumb because I didn't really know what was going on as a 7th grader, right? And anyway, but it was interesting to figure out about the human organism as a sexual eating fucking creature, right? Like, hey, we eat, we eat, we sleep, we fucking, we shit, right? And girls are human organisms. They're sexualized. They desire their sex the same, and they're willing to molest, young girls molest boys, or, that happens. Women molest boys. That happens, right? And so anyway, apparently there was a rash of this, right? I had several babysitters, several girls that babysat for my parents. I think we might have had a boy babysitter at one point, but I think for the most part it was girl babysitters. And But there was another girl, and what she liked to do is she liked to get the three boys to strip naked, right? So she would take off her bra and get down into her underwear, but she'd never take off her underwear. She always played stripping games with us, and then she'd throw our clothes outside the window and make us run out and get it, right? And so that was probably when I was a year, maybe a year to 2 years old. Years older than that was this other babysitter that was, getting us boys naked, or asking us, telling us, you got to take off your clothes. We're playing this game, right? And anyway, so that's kind of that, right? But it's so during the early years of the internet and all this disclosure and all this happening was really, really great, right? The pushback of women against, I guess, more of a wave of, they're the ones suffering what they assume is a greater peril with, I'm the weaker sex and I'm raped, and if men can walk out late at night and not fear things that women fear. And I used to think, well, that's just psychological conditioning that the parents instilled in the girls, and it has very little to do with actual rape. And then I pull back on that and say, well, no, it makes more sense that women could be raped. But the whole point of this, obviously, of me making this video, is to suggest that women, you don't get off the hook, right? As the new 5G network comes in, and evidence of people's history and behavior and activity, especially all the young kids that are given cell phones, and we'll understand the sexual pathologies that arise throughout, human sexual growth, just human growth and everything that comes along with it. There will be new data sets in the future, and women are not going to get away scot-free from their sexual sins, if you will, right? Or their misconduct. And so anyway, that's those are my two stories. I will note two more things, I guess. One, my parents were interesting in that I first saw a movie called Dressed to Kill when I think I was 7 or 8. It was around the same time that second babysitter was in, or maybe just a little bit after, right? And but I did break my back shortly after this molestation by this 14-year-old when I was 6. And so there was a lot of change, but all I remember is I watched Dressed to Kill when my brothers had gone to sleep and my parents were up late, and I got up and they said, go ahead and watch this. And it was a rated R movie. And it was the first time I saw a naked woman on TV. The very first time I saw a naked woman was also watching her get stabbed, right, in a shower. It was like a repeat of the Hitchcock murder and shower scene, right? So I thought, and that I remember psychologically hit me as, wow, naked woman. I remember like feeling weird, like my parents are watching me see a naked woman, and I knew that seeing a naked woman was something that wasn't normal. You don't walk outside and see it, right? And then I was getting interest in women, but it wasn't really sexual interest. I don't think I really started getting erections or masturbating until close to the age of 11. And yeah. So anyway, that's that shows a weird psychology. But I do wonder how people were conditioned. My region. You can narrow it down to the age, the generation I was born in, the city I was in, the type of people in the city, the proclivities of the other people, the legal structure, the legal system, what the atmosphere was, how the girl that molested me was raised, how the girl that stripped us was raised. Who knows, right? That's all speculative. But so anyway, that being said, I find it really frustrating because I'm, no woman. It's interesting for me to go date women, especially when a large majority of the women are, like I mix with a liberal crowd, and so they take on the approach of women are getting the shit end of the stick and the victim end of this. Anyway, I'm going on a little too long. Appreciate you guys watching, and feel free to like, share, and subscribe because that's gotta get this channel up. I think anyway, neither here nor there, but just you keep it in mind, ladies. You're not getting off scot free. We know that you guys are nasty, lying, human, sexualized, creepy creatures with impulses and desires yourself. And I'm not putting it past you. You guys don't get a pass in my mind, right? And I'm not saying that generally. I'm saying that specifically. Specific women, you will not get a pass. Generally, you can base your stats on whatever stats you want. I'm just saying I have a hard time with the idea that men are shored up as the aggressors and that women are perceived as clean little Barbie dolls and pixies and just innocents and there's nothing to be thrown back against them. And then and then where I painted the painting, the woman I was telling you about, right? She's a little cougar, right? She's after, or I watched her sexualize right in front of me towards a guy that was about her son's age, and I was like, huh, I think I'm done hanging out with this woman. Not because I think there's anything legally wrong with that. There was all some social situation going on there, and I'm not telling anyone who it is, but the point is that just that you women, you're sexual, human, animal creatures with your lusts, and you're not pristine. And I think there's bare knuckle boxing in Wyoming now, men to men, women to women. Can't wait till that's co-ed. It'd be really interesting to watch little John fight big caveman Wilma in a battle royale, battle between the sexes and shit. Okay, well, ending the stream. Hit the repeat button. It's less than 25 minutes. You guys can put it on 0.5 speed and get through all the good shit. Thanks for your time. Feel free to comment also.